Why not try something smart to chew on? The Lunchroom on RCI, Monday to Friday, 12:45 to 2 p.m. The Lunchroom, informative, enlightening, provocative, engaging. The Lunchroom on RCI, food for thought. The station that gives you, more lunch.
Good afternoon and welcome to the Lunchroom on Radio Caribbean International. It is Wednesday, August the 21st, 2024. This is program number 1235 of the Lunchroom. I'm your host, Calix George Jr. Now, in addition to 101.1 FM radio, you can also get us at our website. It's rcistlucia.com. You can also download our previous shows on that platform in podcast form. And we are also streaming live on Facebook. Just search for the official page of Radio Caribbean International. And please be sure to like and share that as well with your friends and family. The number to call in to tell us what's on your plate today, it is 452-3046. Again, 452-3046. That's our mainline number. And as well, you can also reach us via WhatsApp. And that number is 724-0008. You can save that into your contacts. It is, again, 724-0008. You can call in or message in to that number. And of course, in just a bit, we're going to be discussing the latest book published in St. Lucia, Stories of Roseau Valley. And we've got a wonderful group in to tell us about the amazing production as it was just recently launched in Roseau. So I'll be speaking to them in just a bit, the members of the research committee that put together this publication. But first, just a bit of history for today. In the year 1888, an American inventor, William Seward Burroughs, patented what was called an adding machine, I suppose precursor to a calculator. 1911, on this day, the Mona Lisa was stolen from the Louvre by a gentleman by the name of Vincenzo Peruggi, and it was eventually recovered 2 years later. 1959, on this day, Hawaii became the 50th state of the United States. 1991, on this day in Russia, in that time the Soviet Union, a conservative coup in the Soviet Union was crushed by popular resistance, and that was led by Boris Yeltsin. And in 2020, a bit of internet history, the Korean pop group BTS released the single Dynamite, and that was the first video to be watched more than 100 million times in 24 hours on YouTube. We now move on to our special dish of the day. The daily dish is brought to you the kind compliments of our good friends at Tiles Plus.
One tiles for your home, I see. Bathroom, kitchen, pantry. Need tiles for your balcony. Come down to Tiles Plus, satisfaction guarantee. Tiles Plus, Tiles Plus, Tiles Plus. Big tiles with unbeatable cost. Customer service, A+. Need all kind of tiles. Come down to Tiles Plus. We also got gasway and vanity. Box, doors, you'll see. Come down to my nobody. We got the best tiles on island. Trust me. We are located Land Street in Castries, Bosses Jubilee Lanes, and Flag Street in Viewfort. Telephone number 453-7939.
Serving now, the Daily Dish.
And welcome back to our production here today. And of course, as promised, we wanted to highlight the latest production, a publication here in St. Lucia, and it is entitled Stories of Roseau Valley. Quite often, of course, you think of a book and it's one author. This one, in fact, was a collaborative effort put together through a committee that dedicated around 8 years, the past 8 years, in terms of making this book, this publication, a reality. And the focus is a specific geographic part of St. Lucia. And for those of you who remember your St. Lucia geography, you would have learned about the three major agricultural producing valleys, the cul-de-sac, the Mabuya, and the Roseau Valley. And This one, of course, is about that Roseau Valley. It is, in fact, the largest of all the valleys in St. Lucia by virtue of area, and of course, also really important in terms of it being the largest river as well on the island, the Roseau River. But within that geographic space, lots of interesting history, lots of interesting communities and stories coming out of that. And the desire to, in fact, capture that is the journey that we're going to be sharing today with the research committee of the production, publication stories of Roseau Valley. And so, very pleased to have in studio with me today Mr. Primus Hutchinson. I think Primus is no stranger to lots of St. Lucians who've known him for many, many years through his work through the Government Information Service, and in particular, holding the fort in terms of the Creole language production for very, very many years. I think the joke that was shared that some people were surprised you even knew English, Primus. That's one point. But
I have produced quite a few productions, English productions as well.
I know, but then of course that
Yes.
thing that people in people's minds, they got so very hooked on you being the voice of Creole for such a long time.
Very true.
In fact, I think that was one of the jokes that was shared indeed at the book launch.
Trust Earl for that. Trust Earl Bousquet for that.
Indeed. And Patricia Lionel, she is a public servant currently, but you may also know her from her time maybe strutting on the stage, on main stage as well. I think, as it was Miss St. Lucia, Miss?
I've done a few
of
Miss
these pageants, Miss Ancillary.
Miss Universe and Carnival Queen, and I also represented St. Lucia in Guyana.
Wonderful, wonderful. And I'm not sure if she's going to announce it, but she's also one of our latest Chevening scholars right here in St. Lucia. And we'll talk about that in just a bit, maybe. And Mr. Stanislas Albert, my apologies, who also hails from the Roseau Valley and was a major contributor in terms of putting this together. And I believe also a background in education.
No, youth development.
Youth development.
And I'm a police officer by profession.
Okay. So there you go. And so, of course, lots of varied experience coming together in putting together this really, really wonderful publication. I don't know who wants to start first to tell us, where did this idea all come from? Why, in the current era, the desire to sit down and record and put together stories about a place where called Roseau. A lot of people quite often maybe saw it as an agricultural area, and to not the center of the island by virtue of not being cast trees. Or why sit down and write this story about Roseau?
Okay, I'll start off.
Patricia, wonderful.
Thank you for having us here.
Indeed, thanks for coming through. Mm-hmm.
Good afternoon, St. Lucia. In 2016, Jack Mill had actually been selected to host Journée Creole. The last time we had hosted was in 1997. And in one of our meetings, I can recall that we were asked to produce a booklet of just a little history of the area.
Okay.
So we agreed, and we said that would have been something interesting to add to the calendar of activities.
Now, just take a pause there. Was this something that was being requested of you, or was that, did it come out of a conversation with the committee? How did that come out? And why was it seen to be something that was important for Jack Mill?
Well, actually, FRC, in one of our very first meetings, I can remember March 16th, 2026. I remember the date.
2016?
Yes. There was a calendar of activities. They usually like to have different events throughout the month leading up to the final event. Mm-hmm. And that was one thing that came up. It was not something that we necessarily had to do, but it was an idea. And we took it on right away. We said definitely that would be something that would allow us to inform and educate people in the area and people who are coming from outside to witness that Journée Creole, because we were planning to actually have that book on display at that day. But that did not work out. I can remember the Saturday before Journée Creole, I was frantic running everywhere trying to see where I was open so I could have it printed. But it didn't work out.
Mm-hmm.
But we said, nevertheless, we will regroup. We will add some more information. And in delving into that, we said that this is bigger than what we had expected. So in fact, we had enlisted the assistance of Mr. Hutchinson. So he was the one who started writing. He actually had some information from 1997 because he was on the previous Junior Creole committee. He had already interviewed a few persons, so he had all this information there. So it was easy for us in the beginning, but then when we started to expound on it, we realized that we needed assistance of other persons, and that's why we were able to get assistance. We brought Stan on board, we brought Margaret, Brian O'Geist, Father Lamberton Rose, and Francis Lewis, who's very pivotal in terms of agriculture in the valley. So that is how it started and how it evolved.
Very, very interesting. So it started through June Creole, really a focus on Jack Mill in first instance. But of course, now we have not a booklet, but a full-fledged book, of over 100 pages. I think 185 pages in sharing this with this. Now, of course, Primus, you came on board, a member of a resident of Jack Mill, and you're now being asked to do writing and to take this on. What were your thoughts about that idea?
Actually, the idea played around my own mind for quite a while. I thought of maybe I really should sort of highlight some of the developments I mean I'm a born bred um, um, man from the Roseau area, from Roseau Valley, and I experienced quite a bit from my formative years as a child growing up during the King era. I actually my mom worked on the estate. I attended school, the very first school um, in the Roseau Valley. I was a student, so I experienced quite a bit of the early history of the valley. So when I was approached, um, it wasn't too much uh, a challenge as such. Of course, as she indicated, I'd already collected information, interviewed a few people, and so on. But then when I started writing, I then realized, gosh, boy, this thing is going to be big. There's a lot more information that we need. And hence the reason why we invited the others, the contributing writers. But even then, the research, I thought I had everything covered, but then I was nothing near to what we really needed. And so it took a lot of research, a lot of weekends going to visiting um, interviewees, people that we believe would be able to provide us with vital information and so on. And so the journey began, and there were lots of ups and downs, challenges, and so on that um, we will speak of them later on in the program. Mm-hmm. So, but it was indeed quite a challenge.
Very, very interesting, of course. And I mean, as you mentioned, Patrice, it started off as maybe a 7-month journey because you were in March hoping to finish something for June Creole by October. And then it ended up being an 8-year journey. Mr. Albert, at what point did you get involved in this journey along the way?
Good afternoon, St. Lucia. Actually, I happened to be on the Junior Creole Committee at the time. And then Patrice came to me and mentioned that assistance was needed in working on a booklet. And we began the journey of working on the booklet. And then the booklet, like she said, did not come about in time. And then we decided, hey, since that is the case, we're going into trying to publish a full-fledged book. And it was then the information started coming on. And it was a lot of work, like Primus said, because I remember at one point in time, I was looking for a particular book entitled The Catholic Church in St. Lucia.
Yes.
And I had seen one of these books in an area. I went back there and the book was not there. And I had to be searching. I know of a few priests, so I made some calls and nobody had a copy. Eventually, I was able to get a copy at the archives at VG.
Right.
So it was a lot of searching and a lot of investigating and a lot of getting the stories from. We had to get some of the stories from individuals who were in the community and outside of the community. One of the persons that I interviewed was one of the first teachers at the Roseau Valley, Teacher Jones. And in speaking with Teacher Jones, it was really an inspirational moment.
Of course, I mean, as you mentioned, of course, so many different individuals who you had to come into contact with. But am I wrong to say that this is perhaps, I mean, because we, every single year, since I think, what, the 1980s, I think 1984 was it, the first Journée Creole in St. Lucia? Somewhere around there, I think, certainly. Um, we've been having this, so this is nearly 40 years of having Journée Creole. But is this perhaps one of the first books being produced through a Journée Creole initiative in a community? I think this is pretty astounding when you think about it, because every year we see about 3 or 4 communities coming on and actually, but you actually have now created a significant legacy coming out of that Journée Creole movement.
Of course, I I can't recall any book being published. There may have been
Booklets, as
booklets or
the
something, but
intention, yes.
yeah.
Yeah.
But really, when I was approached, Miss Lionel approached me to assist, and I started thinking about what what was needed. Um, Boy, I started thinking. The first thing that struck my mind was agriculture. Of course, Roseau Valley, an agricultural based community. And then my background in agriculture, I am an agriculturist by profession as well. So I started thinking, okay, agriculture. I mean, the culture aspect, the folklore, I had that covered. I mean, I grew up in the community, the Walaba, the stories, the folklore stories, all of these things. I was very much involved, so that wasn't too much of a problem. And so the first person I thought of was Mr. Stevens, deceased now, who was employed with the Windburn Research, and I worked at Windburn for a while. And then I went to this gentleman of the morning, and then I spoke with him. I told him about our plans and so on, and he thought of it. And he said he would love to help, but the best person that I should approach would be Mr. Francis Leos. Now, Mr. Leos was one of the top managers at the time at Windburn, one of the scientists there, and also involved with the GIST industries and so on. So I found a way of contacting Mr. Leos, and I did. And Mr. Leos was sort of reluctant at first because, I mean, he being a disciplinarian and of course, just like your dad, a perfectionist, so to speak. But it didn't take him long to realize that we were doing something that would be something he probably foresee that this project would be something that would work well for us in the community. And so he came in, and praise God that he was with us, and he assisted us considerably. And then through him, your dad came on, and that was another story by itself. And so we started writing and preparing manuscripts, and we end up writing about 10 to 11 manuscripts or so. More than that, making changes, and your dad was pivotal in that regard because he went through it. We would have our meetings at the at before Mr. Leos's home, at right up
at the cinema
rituals at Fabian's,
yes.
Yeah. And then your dad would be coming in, and that's how we were able to sort of get in touch with him. And then I think Mr. Leos may have spoken with him before, and then he took the manuscript and he was like, you all need to change this. You all need to put this in. You all need to, and so on. And I did indicate, and I alluded to that during my remarks, saying, "Boy, why did we bring in this one?" But it worked for the best, and so on, and so the journey um, started, and we started receiving the assistance of others and so on, and we persevered, and we wrote and we wrote and we wrote and make changes.
Just to add to what you were saying in terms of if we were the first to publish a book, I'm hoping that this serves as a catalyst for
Yes,
other communities to do the same.
definitely.
Maybe not
Yes.
necessarily out of June Creole, but just to write about, the history of your community,
Hmm.
just to educate even the younger ones coming up, because a lot of the history is lost. Nothing is being passed down, but if you have something tangible, um, you learn a lot, and you only know most times where you're going when you know where you're from and what
Right.
has happened in the past. So we are encouraging actually other communities to do the same. So instead of having our histories written for us,
Hmm.
let's write our own stories, because we know there are many other stories out there.
I remember many moons ago being on the jetty at Ancillary. I think it was an Ancillary Fish Friday, and I was with some friends, and I remember being approached by some young boys, and they were, asking for some money, right, to whatever, maybe buy a soft drink or whatever. And I remember asking them, well, tell me one thing about your community that I don't know. And they were very hard pressed to actually do that. A lot of young people are growing up in communities, and they don't actually have a sense of where they live and what happened in those places, maybe even why it's even called what it is called.
Right, right.
And so, I mean, this initiative certainly, I think, is driving towards um, embracing the thousands of people that live in the Roseau Valley. What's the response has been like in terms of the community? How have they viewed this?
Amazing, every day when I up to this morning. um Somebody was commenting, this initiative is great. This is a legacy, like you have said, and it will assist the younger ones coming up to know more about where they came from and what happened, why Roseau is how it is right now, and what we can do in the future to improve on what has already happened. And I appreciate the assistance from all the team members, the sponsors that came on board. Sometimes it is not easy getting persons to buy into your vision. And I just want to say a big thank you. I mean, I've already thanked them in person, but just to put it out there that I am encouraging other entities to come on board and support initiatives like this.
Speak a little bit, because Mr. Albert was beginning to discuss some of the sources of information, how you were actually going about getting this research done. And of course, you were speaking to the oral history aspect, interviewing teachers, other people in the community. But of course, there's a lot of other types of research, no doubt, that you would have had to get involved in. You mentioned the archives as well, for example. That research journey. You want to speak to that, anybody?
Um, well, I'm sure Stanislas would be able to add to it. But the for example, some of the interview, the oral tradition, you needed to visit a number of the elderly in the community. I and fortunately, because quite a few of the custodians of our oral history and tradition have transitioned, and fortunately for us, we were able to capture uh, some of the remaining ones. And just a few months after the interview, about two or three transitions soon after we had
Mm,
conducted the interviews,
yes.
and we were able to get the stories going way back. How life was, the Indian community, and then the history of Roseau, its connection to Ancillary, because we were part of Ancillary. I
Hmm.
think we
The quarter of
Court
ancillary,
of
yes,
Ancillary.
yes, the
I
quarter.
don't think and I think it's safe to say that we don't really depend on ancillary, but we still Court of Ancillary. I mean,
Hmm.
we have our churches,
Hmm.
schools, and
Hmm.
everything, but we still Court of Ancillary. But in the early years, everything was ancillary. The First
Right,
Communion, the church, and people walked.
right.
They walked from Millet, Lacomingo, barefooted
Barefoot, yes.
to get
The
to attend
ancillary,
school,
yes.
church, and what have you. And some of the stories that we were able to pull out from some of these interviewees, and the early years of entertainment and so on, and people had to have this.
Go to Ansel for cinema too, I suppose, because there was a
Yes, I
cinema
mean,
in Ansel at one
there
point,
was,
right?
but at a time when the cinema, I mean, you would walk. I mean, it was easy to walk 3 miles from
Right.
and so on, but transportation was not too much of an issue, but it was not as as prominent as it is now. But yeah, we would walk to the cinema and walk back. You know, that wasn't we were not there was not much of a threat. Security was not a problem then.
Right.
So all of these you would find in this publication, and a lot more. I mean, some of the superstitious beliefs and so on, the practice of a little bit of witchcraft, a little bit of this, a little bit of
Yeah.
and so on, and all of that, and the midwifery practices at the time. Yeah, and there's an interesting story in there, and so it goes. I mean, the early days of dancing and music, where the hi-fis, people used to carry the hi-fis. You know, the hi-fi owner would pay someone to carry, and rugged areas at the time. I mean, there were not motorable roads at the time, and you had to carry this the flambeau, and to long distances, and then there were no electricity then.
Right.
So the hi-fis used to be powered by batteries and so on, and all of this, and the issues when things go wrong and so on. And sometimes people are traveling long distances with their flambeaus, and it's forgotten at times where it was hidden and so on, and then you have to travel back at nights, and you're thinking of the garages and all of that and so on. So these are some of the stories. But apart from that, some of the agricultural development and so on, and how Roseau contributed to. Roseau was sort of the economic breadbasket of St. Lucia at one time, and people migration from other communities like Ansler, Viewport, and Choiseul, and people who came. There's a story in the book where this guy left his wife pregnant to seek employment at the sugar factory, and then when child was born, and then the guy never returned. And when a son, was old enough, the mother sent him in search of the dad, because he hadn't returned after so many years. The son never returned. Okay. Son met with the dad. They actually met each other. They never returned. And that's one of so many stories of, and that's why the Roseau Valley is a melting pot of, different people from the various communities down south and so on.
Very, very fascinating. And the time is going so quickly. We're going to have to take a break at this point because we're actually due to take in our weather report. We'll continue this conversation, but of course, that's been our dish of the day.
This has been The Daily Dish.
One tiles for your home, I see. Bathroom, kitchen, pantry. Need tiles for your balcony. Come down to Tiles Plus, satisfaction guarantee. Tiles Plus, Tiles Plus, Tiles Plus. Big tiles with unbeatable cost. Customer service, A+. Need all kind of tiles. Come down to Tiles Plus. We also got gasway and vanity. Pots, doors, you'll see. Come down to mind nobody. We got the best tiles on island. Trust me. We are located Land Street in Castries, Bosses Grizzly, and Flag Street in Viewport. Telephone number 453-7939.
Girl, I've been so stressed searching for the perfect tiles to complete my home. Really? Yeah, it's always the same white, beige, and gray tiles with these tile stores. Like they're all buying from the same place. You're the design expert. Help me, please. I'm fed up. What are you looking for? Something different. Something that says Caribbean beauty and suits my personality. Something vibrant and classy with a little razzle dazzle. Okay, Ms. Razzle Dazzle, I know just the place. Island Style Tile and Bath, they're my #1 store for everything tile. And with their new In Living Color collection, you'll find the most gorgeous styles to give you that splash of Caribbean flair you're looking for. That sounds perfect. I'll even take you myself and throw in a free design consultation. I'll never say no to that, sis. I can't afford you anyway.
Visit our Island Style showrooms in Castries, Rodney Bay, and Viewport, or call 450-452 or 453 Tile. We'll help bring your vision to life in living color.
This is Radio Caribbean International. It's now time for the weather news.
And that's on the coast of the World Water. It's now time for a weather report as of 12 noon today, presented by Island Style Talimba. The forecast for St. Lucia Valley for the next 24 hours. The winds will be blowing from between the east and east-southeast, near 16 miles per hour or 26 kilometers per hour. The weather partly cloudy skies, occasionally becoming cloudy with scattered showers. And the forecast for the Lesser Antilles over the northern and central portions of the Lesser Antilles. Partly cloudy skies becoming cloudy with scattered showers and a chance of isolated thunderstorms. For the south, fair to partly cloudy and hazy with a few showers. And the tropical weather outlook, moisture and instability associated with a weak tropical wave will continue to cause occasionally cloudy periods with scattered showers and possibly isolated thunderstorms over parts of our region during the forecast period. Another tropical wave located over the far eastern tropical Atlantic is moving westward near 9 miles per hour or 15 kilometers per hour. Tropical cyclone formation is now expected over the tropical Atlantic during the next 7 days. And this was your weather report as of 12 noon today, presented by Island Style Talimba.
This has been RCI's Weather News. For more information, call the Weather Hotline at 454-3452. RCI 101 number 1.
Girl, I've been so stressed searching for the perfect tiles to complete my home. Really? Yeah, it's always the same white, beige, and gray tiles with the style stores. Like they're all buying from the same place. You're the design expert. Help me, please. I'm fed up. What are you looking for? Something different. Something that says Caribbean beauty and suits my personality. Something vibrant and classy with a little razzle dazzle. Okay, Ms. Razzle Dazzle, I know just the place. Island Style Tile and Bath, they're my number one store for everything tile. And with their new In Living color collection, you'll find the most gorgeous styles to give you that splash of Caribbean flair you're looking for. That sounds perfect. I'll even take you myself and throw in a free design consultation. I'll never say no to that, sis. I can't afford you anyway.
Visit our Island Style showrooms in Castries, Rodney Bay, and View Fort, or call 450-452 or 453 Tile. We'll help bring your vision to life in living color.
Welcome back to the Lunchroom here at Radio Caribbean International, and we are discussing stories of Roseau Valley. It is the latest publication, just recently launched a couple weeks ago, and it is focused on a very distinct and culturally and economically important part of St. Lucia, historically important, that of Roseau. And we're discussing this book with the research committee, effectively a collaboration of different authors, this publication, number of different stories from different individuals, including Mr. Stanislaus Albert, Patricia Lionel, and Mr. Primus Hutchinson. And of course, we've been discussing how it all came together. But I just want to touch on a little bit about where we even consider to be the Roseau Valley, because I think you were mentioning that, of course, the southern part of the valley was oriented towards Ancillary, but there's also that northern part, north of the river, so to speak, which is also part of that Roseau Valley. You know, your communities like La Quamingo and Cooley Town, Bel Air, Peru, and many others, Sarot even, which are in fact part of that Roseau Valley.
Yes, the valley comprises, when we speak of Roseau, most times we tend to focus on the Hollywood community where we had the
factory.
Right.
Yes.
But Roseau comprises quite a few communities. Millet being part of the Roseau Valley as well. Sarot, to a certain extent, yes. But Varna, Mondor, Jacmel, Montciso, Baden, Cooley Town, and so on, and the part of we can to a certain extent Marigot, yes. So
In fact, I think in the old books, in the old maps, it's Marigot de Roseau.
Marigot de Roseau. Yes. The name in fact, there was a hotel named Marigot de Roseau at one time, way back. when they produced the movie, what is it called,
Doolittle's?
Doctor
Yes,
Doolittle's,
yes.
and so on. Yes, so those would comprise the Roseau Valley, quite a large community in itself. Yeah, so basically that's what you'd consider to be the Roseau Valley. Um, and Jackmel being the center point of all our activities,
Right.
the church, the schools, and what have you. Yeah, so this is where you speak of Roseau. Ancillary, we still. I hope one of these good days we will no longer be considered quarter of ancillary.
Well, it's interesting that you raise that because I think, again, in the very, very old French colonial period, there was that desire to create another quarter, somewhat where Roseau is. In fact, I think they were going to call it the quarter of Joubert or something of the sort.
The history of St. Lucia, I
So-
think, made reference to it somewhere
Yeah.
within the book at this time. Yeah, I think. But we will get over that one of these good days. I mean, we love ancillary. They're like our grandmother and so our grand. But we can handle things on our own at this time, and so on, and hence the reason why the stories of Roseau Valley is out.
Interesting.
Yes.
Patrish, a lot of stories in there. Maybe you could tell us some of these various areas. In fact, I mean, before you do that, because I think one thing we have not really been saying is how can one get the book? So maybe somebody wants to actually mention that first and foremost in terms of access to this publication.
Okay, for now, you can get the books from the offers, all of us here. I actually work on the waterfront, so you can call me at 520-4188, Stanislas at 520-4800, and Primus, I don't have your number.
You can never get my number correctly. It's 720-6236. And for people in the community, I have books at home in the immediate vicinity of Jackmel and so on. So you can just take a drive or walk up to my home, and the books waiting there for you. You can come and collect 3-4 of them.
Right. And also at the Folk Research Center, Monsignor Patrick Anthony Folk Research Center, Barnard Hill Castries. The book is available for $50. You can also order on Amazon.
Okay, wonderful.
So yes, you can do that at $17.95 US. Yes.
So on Amazon, of course, that anybody around the world can then also
all around the world. And you have
access
quite
it.
a few persons already ordering, and they're sending a photo. Look, I've ordered my book. My book is here. So I'm so proud when I see these things. Just to show you, how technology, you can reach persons from all over the world. So you don't have to be in St. Lucia. You can be in Taiwan or wherever you are, and you can order the book, and you have your book in your hands.
Now, of course, there is this whole matter of actual publishing, and sometimes people don't even appreciate maybe how involved that can be. And I think you got some good assistance through Jacko Productions.
Yes.
Dr.
I
Anderson
could not have
Reynolds.
picked a better
Publisher.
So I just want to thank him again. He really guided us through the process. I learned a lot. It has been some long days and extra long nights, but we got through it. We persevered. Like Primus said, we have so many versions of this book, even printed book. That is another version because we had to make some changes. And sometimes you only realize when you have it in hand,
Right.
some of the nitty-gritty things that we may have missed. And I'm sure there still may be some things we've missed, but I would like to think that we had a near
In a
perfect
second print, you
execution.
might then end up a few improvements as well along the way, certainly.
Yes. Even some of the things like US versus American English, all of that
Right.
we had to look at.
Right.
I'm a stickler when it comes to things like that, and spelling people's names properly. I can remember we had for Anne Monica, our very first Lawan Creole, we had ANN, and it was missing an E, and I said no, we have to have this corrected.
Yes.
We had to have this corrected, and things like that. So there's a lot that goes on in
a lot
the
of
entire
detail,
process.
a lot of reading and going through
Reading
and
and reading
editing
and reading and editing.
iteration after iteration to get it
To get it.
as close to perfect as possible. And of course, I mean, all the other things, the front cover production and ensuring that those things, your photos in it. It's a color production as well. I realize it. So you got some color photos
Yes,
captured inside of there
we were
as
able
well.
to get some photos from a few members of the community. So we're very grateful for that. Yeah. definitely.
Now, of course, as you mentioned, it is available online and through. You'll have to probably mention your numbers again for those who may be listening out there. But is the plan to also have it in other stores? Maybe I know, for instance, the Distillers is hoping to have a gift shop at some
Yes,
point as well,
yes,
part of their whole
definitely,
redevelopment.
definitely. But we also are in conversation with other stores in St. Lucia. I
Right.
know there are not many bookstores
Yeah.
around now,
I think Export St. Lucia
but
has something
Taste of
for
St.
Taste of
Lucia
St. Lucia.
at the Point Surfing.
So the acres as well, where Roof of Us was right, I think.
Was it 758 Books?
I think it is.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Not sure. Yes, I think it's still operating somewhere in
Yeah,
that
we
area.
have MNC as well, but we're in conversation, and when we finalize everything, we will send out a release as to where it can be purchased.
Wonderful, wonderful. Now you're of course getting to some of the stories that you've actually captured, and maybe you could at least give us a sense of that table of contents.
Yes.
As to what's in that book.
Okay, so we start with a foreword by none other than Sir Calix George. We also have a poem by Canisia Lubrin. Oh yes, definitely. She's a poet. She's based in Canada, but she's from Jacmel, Roseau Valley. She has won many accolades. We have acknowledgements, introduction by Patricia Lionel. And then we move into the chapters. We begin with Primus Hutchinson, who captures quite a lot in terms of a historical perspective of the Roseau Valley. We have some reminiscences by some of the people within Boaden Jacmel, a social assessment of Hollywood Roseau, culture, folklore, and recreation. We have a connection between the Boaden residents and the Montciso residents, and you know what type of relationship they had. Apparently, when they were younger, the Boaden boys used to tease the Montciso boys so much so that sometimes they were scared to pass through to get to school. You know, things like that.
So rivalry of sorts.
And these people are still alive.
Right. So I learned a lot myself.
You grab those carriers that people that you carry a
Lunch bags, yes, yeah.
Snatch that and everything in there allowed.
Oh my.
Yes.
These people are still alive up to this day.
Yes.
It's funny now, you know, and the children, I can venture to say that they were petrified. They were so, you know, and it was just fun. They were the Montciso children, you know, they were having fun. The Warden kids, but the Montciso children were just so scared of these people. They were afraid of walking down the road, you know, until I think the parents got involved, and so they were able to control the children and to stop this thing continue happening.
So it sounded like a bit of piracy, basically.
Piracy,
so the Boaden pirates were controlling the lane to get down between Montciso and the school.
Yes.
Interesting.
Yes. And so it was, again, it was the East Indian, well, Indian, it was
Montciso being more of an East Indian community.
Right, and Boaden being, and so it was the Indians versus but it more so, the aggressors were the Boaden children, you know, and so on, and that went on for a little while, you know, and so on. So I mean, right now they laugh it off. Everybody laughs it off, you know, because when they were having fun, but it was real piracy taking place there at the time.
Interesting.
Yeah, okay.
Now, I mentioned folklore and recreation. That's an interesting combination. I don't know if you want to speak a little bit about.
Really, and that's where we got all the stories of the practices of Obia and the beliefs of, you know, at the time, how certain practices, you know, that were condemned and what people believe in, like for example, after someone dies, you know, you would the death clothes. I mean, in those days, if you were bedridden for a while and you die, the members of the community would gather these clothes and take it to the river, you know, to wash the dead clothes, they would call it. And at that particular day, because at the time there were no pipe-borne water. Most
Right.
people,
So you were dependent on the river
for the laundry and so on, and for your shower and so on. that particular day, nobody would go to that river. Not one person would bathe in that river. You can't. They would say, you lave had more of your sir. 5 of your sir, so and certain places where you would not at certain times at night you're forbidden to walk because there would be witches and so on and all of that. So you can't go certain places at certain times. And people will give you stories about that. And then the first murder in the Roseau Valley, that is documented in the book as well. Heart-wrenching piece. And then there was this at the time people they were duels, but not with cutlasses and so like now with firearms. People fought with, and fellas would place bets and so
Fist
on.
duels.
Right.
Okay.
On a PD, like late evening after PD.
Right.
Fellas would settle their differences right there with the fist, and
Yes.
fellas would place bets and so on. And there's a story in there about that, and so on, and the whole thing of people being harmed using obia and all of these things, and you need to have your what they call it as a term that for your protection and so on, that you walk with it on you and so on and all of that, and quite a few stories. I mean, you need to read the book to get in the full.
Yes,
right.
Indeed.
Yes, yeah, and so.
So I'll just briefly continue. We have, he spoke about Warden Jackmel senior citizens speak, as well as the Monsizo in those settlements, actually how they came to St. Lucia, where they were working on the farms and they were promised passage to go back to
So it's part of the indentured
Calcutta.
program, right?
Right. And then after they worked the fields, they were not able to pay their passage to go back. So they ended up settling and staying and marrying down there, having families and whatnot. We have the story of Bananas in the Valley by Francis Leos, who, like I said, he was one of the directors at the time, I think, at Winban and also at Geest.
The managing director of Geest.
Yes. So it speaks to model farms and how that came about.
Right.
And we have Stanislas Albert, the Roseau Combined School, an overview. Up to Sunday, we had an event at the school, and somebody was asking, but it's a Roseau school, but why is it in Jackmel?
Right.
So the school actually started off in Roseau, and
right.
then it was shifted to Jackmel, kept the name. So, things like that. So imagine a child going to school and wondering, but why is it called Roseau and we're in Jackmel? So, things like that. If you read the book, you'll get an appreciation and an understanding of how it came about. We also have reminiscences of the Roseau Combined School by Brian Ogis. He was the former principal at the school at the time. So he mentioned about how the school started and what the experience was like. I think on the first day when he entered the school, a lot of the children couldn't speak English. What was it? Or they were speaking Creole. Teacher Jones. Teacher Jones.
Yes.
Teacher Jones.
Right.
Teacher Jones was the one when he first came to Roseau. The children couldn't speak any English at all. Imagine after the first day, he said that when the children were leaving, all of them stood up and it was like a song. Teacher Nugale.
So, when was this? When did that school get formed, though? Is it in the 50s?
I think it was sometime around 1955, somewhere thereabout.
Right.
But it's somewhere in
because
there.
There was, in fact, a long time before, during the colonial period, I think. Right at the by the factory. But then, in fact, that school had closed down, and then it was.
Yeah. We have the exact date there now. It was on Monday, April 25th, 1955.
1955.
And something that was surprising at the time was that when I interviewed Teacher Jones, he was in his late 80s. And his mind was still very, very much happy. We could have given the dates, time, and everything.
Right. Excellent. And now, during that period, and of course, there was a point being made about the stigma of Jean Roseau, and Roseau being a very rebellious part of St. Lucia. Now, I think part of that may have come out of the sugar strikes that occurred. I think during the 50s as well, there were quite a number of upheavals, and even later on, strikes, both at Cul-de-Sac and Roseau. Is that where some of that stigma came from?
Yes, that is where some of that stigma came from. But it all started with in the early days of the sugar plantation. If you read the book Negma or Freedom Fighters by Michael Lobotin, it will give you a better understanding of that. Is that the slaves who on the plantation at Roseau used to revolt a lot, and they would, anytime that they revolted, they would head up to the hills, and because of that, they were referred to as Negmao. And as it came down the line from the slaves to our grandparents who later worked on the sugar estates, it boiled down to them, and the stigma just kept. Even when persons like Primus, myself, was growing up, that stigma still stayed with people from Roseau. In some instances, if you went somewhere and you left without saying you were leaving, they tell you, "Use Jean Roseau man ukalo badu kwalia." So all of that, and like I said during the lunch, I strongly believe that there are certain things that happen to some of us in life, and it was simply because our address at the time was Roseau.
So you're effectively saying that there was discrimination. There was actually discrimination that people face. Just
And in my early years on the journey to becoming a broadcaster, I mean, I remembered, and I will not mention names here, but um, some people looked at me and said, "Where are you from?" I said, "Roseau." "Roseau? You sure this is what you want to do?" And the gentleman who actually, and I had experiences even here at Radio Caribbean, one of the places that I came for seeking employment, the days of uh, the young lady, the the governor general, acting governor general's sister. She was one of the prominent broadcasters. Imelda Charles,
yes.
Pilgrim, the young Pilgrim lady, and then there were others, and Marcellus, and these guys, and so on. And I used to be coming here quite often I was brought in to do auditions and so on. And I would come in every week to do an audition and so on. And then Mr. Foster was the GM at the time, and never got through. Radio St. Lucia was the same thing, and so on. All because of this Jean Roseau stigma, who am I, coming from this little community and so on, and trying to get into broadcasting. And broadcasting was considered, at the time, and it was. I mean, it wasn't a good experience at all for me. I cried tears many times, and traveling from Jacmel at the time in the late 70s, early 80s. I was unemployed at the time, and then to travel down and then to travel back up and to pay your way and so on. And but all in all, later on, some people came back and said, you were not treated the way that you should have been treated, and they made an apology in a such a way. And I mean, they actually came to me, and even if they didn't apologize, you could get the impression that they felt like, a bit sorry for having treated me the way they did. But all in all, it turned out okay, and so on. And of course, the rest is history. I see that is it.
But there's also, it seems, in as much as there's that stigma, it seemed that you also mentioned that a lot of people seem to want to go to Roseau because they were looking for opportunities
in the early years.
In the early period.
Yes, because as I indicated earlier, that Roseau became the breadbasket. The economic breadbasket of the country. Most people's employment. The distillery, the sugarcane era, people travel from south, to seek employment, and so, and that's why the Hollywood area came into being. I think the
sugar welfare,
right? So they constructed,
these tenement houses
to allow
like
the workers, so that they wouldn't have to be traveled to and fro and so on. And the place was named Hollywood, and I did a production way back with the distillers regarding Hollywood and its connection with and how distillers impacted the Hollywood area. It was a small feature, And so on at that time with Mrs. Moplisi at the time was not at the helm then, but yeah, to look. I think NTN still plays something, I believe, and so it's a production that I did in English though.
That's a nice one. Ladies and gentlemen, it has been fantastic. I know we're really just scratching the surface. I don't think we've even gone through the table of contents
We haven't finished, but
as yet, Patricia.
Well, they'll need to buy the book.
But unfortunately, we're in fact already out of time, and there is quite a lot to discover in that book. The days of sugar, the days of bananas, of rail lines in Roseau, of Denros rum. Lots to be shared inside of there, of course. And of course, just very quickly again, the numbers in terms of people who may want to call to get a copy. Patricia.
520-4188, 520-4800.
And 720-6236.
Wonderful. And of course, it is also available. Stories of Roseau Valley is available online. And the cost at Folk Research Center, that's another option as well. At Barnard Hill, it's $50 available there. And of course, coming to other bookstores soon enough. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you so very much for coming in and sharing with us today on the Lunchroom.
Thank you.
And that's been our program, and we do hope you can join us again tomorrow for another one. I'm your host, Khaled George Jr., saying goodbye.